our beloved David Navara. Everyone likes David.
Welcome, David.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. So I'm sorry for today's quick draw. It was not planned. I mean, I was prepared for about 6 lines. This was one of them. Basically, I thought that with black there was no point to play too risky chess, and that if the opponent plays very quietly against Berlin, there is no need to search for something, because I saw that Daniel Darda tried to avoid this draw by playing d6 instead of
Maybe you can show David a bit. It's touch screen. You can.
No, there's nothing to be shown on this game. I mean, this is the most ordinary Berlin draw, but
maybe what you expected that might happen today. You mentioned like 4 or 5 lines, for example. Which line white is playing usually?
He's also playing Italian with bishop g5. He's also playing c4 in the first move, and then some ideas with d3, knight f3, knight c3, or c5, c4, e5, g3. He is also playing d4, not c4 only in blitz and rapid mostly. e4 he's playing also Berlin with bishop takes c, with d3, bishop c5, bishop takes c6, and also some so it's about 4 lines. I think there was still something, Vienna, I mean e4, e5, knight f3, knight c3, knight f6, f4, d5, f takes e5, knight takes e4, queen f3, also in some games, but very rarely.
Yeah, accuracy is 100%. That was played already many times before, and it's known drawing mechanism. Yeah, but you are black. I think David, that you don't need to apologize, because of course you were ready for a big battle if white opted for something else. Maybe it's a moment that we touch your previous rounds, because there were many interesting games. So maybe if you want to show a little bit how it was your yesterday game a bit, or maybe to touch some other one, just briefly. You don't need to go too deep, maybe just the critical points. You can see it, I put it on the on the touch screen. This is, for example, versus Eduardo. You can maybe fast forward at the moment when you think it's interesting.
In round 8 it was a very important game for me, because I was on +3 with relatively good tiebreakers, but with those tiebreakers it is basically important to win your games early on, because then you are likely to have better tiebreakers than when you finish well. So it was surprisingly my first game against Eduardo Iturrizaga. I mean, he moved to Spain several years ago, so earlier we could not have met in European Championships. But I think we haven't even played online against each other. At least I have not played against his official account.
Yeah, he's from Venezuela. He was playing the Olympiads and so on. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, after e4 his main choice was c5, but recently he has been playing a lot of Caro-Kann, also in his previous 3 games, the European individual, so I was sort of ready for it. Actually, I also play Caro-Kann, but nowadays mostly online in some rapid and blitz, but about 10 years ago it was my main opening. I was playing it when I needed to win with black. I was playing it when I wanted to play solidly.
Before it was Karpov's choice to be solid, but these days you can play Caro-Kann if you want to win.
Yes, I mean also Viktor Laznička played it and played it quite well, so I got inspired by a countryman and friend. So here I chose this line, short variation, which I usually play. I actually played it on chess.com against Grandmaster short with black, maybe at least one time, I don't know, perhaps more than one, definitely more. But knight d7 is one option, and here after castling, Eduardo played a5 in his earlier game against Roman Pirich in round 2, I think. And it's interesting because after a4, f6, white might have slight advantage, but it's very sharp and it's easy to go wrong. And Eduardo Iturrizaga is maybe not a big theoretician, but very resourceful, strong player who can play chaotic positions well. So the point behind knight bd2 is that if black plays a4 now and f6, I can go knight b3, and with white castling instead of this knight b3, which could have happened in the previous line, there is knight h6, knight b3, knight f7. I hope it's this way. I'm just not sure about the move orders. It's always a problem for me. Bishop e7, and now, okay, I will turn off this engine here. Now there are some moves, but I don't want to go too deep. I remember something, but don't want to show my preparation.
Fine.
So the point is that in this move order, starting with knight d2, black cannot play knight h6 here, or he can, but it's a concession because I have knight h4 and there is some check on h5, and it's not great for black because now his king side is weakened, and white's king side is not so weak, although one needs to calculate some short line, but okay. So knight h6, now we have transposed to a normal line. White can also start with knight b3, sorry, not b1. So white has basically two plans here, either a4, a5, or bishop d2 first, and maybe knight e1, and knight d3, maybe f4, then maybe not. So against g5, I think it makes a lot of sense to start with a4, but against queen c7 somehow it seems to be more accurate to start with bishop d2. Maybe it's just my impression, I'm not sure, but basically if black plays some g5 and bishop g7, there might be bishop b4 at some point also. Bit unpleasant move. Maybe white plays a4 now, if I remember my preparation correctly. So bishop h7, but there are some subtleties. Somehow in my preparation I concluded that bishop d2 might be a bit more accurate. After a5 I would have played a4 anyway, but the a5 pawn might become a target, and black can no longer castle queenside, which is important for me because there are some lines where black plays g5 and maybe later f6 or knight g6, g4. So bishop h7 was a surprise. Now I played a4, which is a common move in these positions, and after knight g6 I realized that black prepared two ideas, either f6 or c5. And now I wanted to prevent both, but I concluded that c5 is not such a big problem for me yet because I have c2, c4, and I disliked f6 coming. For example, if I play a5, black can play f6 probably immediately, and then bishop d6 and castle kingside, and I can play something like rook e1, bishop d3, but somehow it seemed to me that in some lines there could be knight e4, and also black can take with the pawn. That was what I disliked, I forgot now. So he can take with the pawn, play bishop d6, and then he has some center. He might sometimes even attack my king, although his king is weaker. I don't know, I did not like it so much, so I played bishop d3, which is not such a rare move against bishop h7, knight g6 in different lines of Caro-Kann. I did not play rook e1 for some reason here, but I think the reason was okay, if I remembered it, it would be great. After bishop e7 I would have played a5 anyway later on, but the problem was that I probably need to play bishop d3 sooner or later anyway, because otherwise black castles and plays f6 and recaptures maybe with the rook and gets some nice French defense with active white squared bishop. So a4 is typical. Bishop d3 is a prophylactic move because now f6 is not great. I can attack the e6 pawn, and if black recaptures with the pawn, there might be some knight h4 ideas. Maybe I would start with rook e1, but this is another idea somewhere here, and black's king is exposed here. So bishop e7 came. Now I played a5 because I wanted to play c4 later without allowing black's knight to occupy d5. So a5, basically my idea was that after c5 I would play c4, and it looks dangerous for black because he is underdeveloped. And actually even with these moves, bishop e7, a5, it still looks dangerous for black, because I can sometimes even attack, oh sorry, this is the wrong line.
Maybe castle instead of taking on d4.
Yes.
No, here c5 and now you took. No, you took dc4, I think. Bishop. Let's say castle now.
Yes, but I can play rook c1 anyway. I calculated. Yes, I calculated c takes d4, bishop takes e6, and queen d8, which looks sensible because if white takes, there will be knight takes e5.
Oh.
But I planned to play something like bishop d5. I don't know if I would have gone for it. I needed to calculate it. And black played something else, but there were ideas like this, and somehow it looked good for white. I think there is bishop a5 somewhere. It seems to work, I would say.
For white?
Yes,
yeah.
For white. I don't know how much, but it looked promising. So black castled. Now he is threatening f6. He takes f6, rook takes f6, for example. So I played c4. It is partially a prophylactic move because I'm preventing c5, or sort of preventing. Also, if black exchanges, he will no longer have f6, and also it's important that f6 doesn't work now because I can play, I think, queen c2 at some point. I don't know, maybe I can start with taking on d5 and play queen b1 if needed to.
But why not queen c2? You just mentioned now queen c2.
Yes, queen c2, c takes.
Queen
yes,
c.
yes,
Or you take
you
with
are
g6.
right, and h6 is hanging. Yes,
Yeah.
rook f7. It's not the end, but it's very good for white probably. Yes, so that's it. This is all right. Rook c8. I was slightly surprised, but black has a solid position, no big problems. I was optimistic about my position, but maybe a bit too much, I don't know. Now I realized that black was going to play c5 soon, and that I needed to do something. So I played h4. Eduardo Iturrizaga was also down to 17 minutes at this point, or something like this, whereas I still had an hour.
13 minutes you could see on the I don't know if you see
okay, so
the
maybe
clock.
on the next move it was 17. Yes, 13 minutes. You are right.
Yeah.
Yes. I still had enough time because I had prepared for this line and it worked out. I mean, not for this particular with bishop h7, but for these lines of Caro-Kann with knight d7, knight e7. So I thought I should do something before black plays c5, rook d8, because e5 would become weak then, so I decided to sacrifice a pawn. I was surprised that black did not spend much time on calculating what happens if he takes, but he was right, because it's dangerous, and white has a very nice positional compensation here. Rook d8 allows bishop e7, although there is e5 hanging sometimes, but maybe not now. Okay, this was my idea. Knight takes e5 doesn't work, and otherwise I am an exchange up for a pawn and my pieces are active. So rook e8, and now I go here, and knight c5 was my idea. If black withdraws the knight, I will have queen b3 attacking b7, and I will regain the pawn with advantage. And if black exchanges, we are playing, but black's queen is not well placed, and I will play queen b3 next, and probably rook d1. Sometimes there might even be some ideas with rook c3 and kingside attack, but probably not here, in other variations. And when speaking about other variations, here I can probably play queen g4, and I was considering whether I should take and go for some attack. Maybe g4, maybe not. I have some rook c3 ideas, or whether I should play f4 and try to push f5. But if this would require a precise calculation, because it can easily go wrong.
Yeah, David, you are known as a tactical and sharp player. It's not easy to take a pawn against you, and be under attack. So I understand, Eduardo.
Okay, I have recently become more boring player, but I mean, this particular draw in Berlin I made several times, but only with black, because when I'm playing e4, e5, I want to play solidly and like this, but with white I'm trying to get more play. Sometimes it's also a draw, but not such a quick one, and sometimes I get sharper position but lose. Okay, but it's life.
I think Sandra can agree that you have this image of a very sharp and entertaining player, so
yes.
don't worry for that.
I definitely received that image. Just recently I became playing more solidly, but okay. H4, rook d8, h5, and I was quite optimistic. I even considered playing g3, but when I played h4, I want to continue with h5. Here I played queen e2, which is maybe not the best move. I saw that b5 was an option here, but I did not know what to do against c5, because if I play something like rook e1, maybe even then c5 is an option, or also b5 here, but I was not so sure about positions like this, because quite some pieces are misplaced, and it can become very good for white or very bad depending on what happens with the bishop on d5.
Yeah, knight on b3, it's a bit clumsy place, but yeah.
And I disliked bishop f4, I disliked bishop b4 here because first black might eye the a5 pawn or sometimes, and next knight f6 becomes an idea after bishop b4, because my bishop can be hanging on f4 sometimes. Yeah. So I played queen e2 and expected b5 and wanted to exchange, and now maybe I would have played bishop a6 and bishop d3, which is not very ambitious, but there are always some problems with b5, perhaps even here, and my bishop would be in danger. And the problem with immediate bishop d3 is that black takes on e5 and I'm a pawn down. So the idea was that I exchange the bishops, then I will centralize my queen. I mean, queen b5 is also an attractive option, but queen e4 is another one sometimes, and maybe queen g4, maybe I will keep the queen here, unless black plays queen a8. So there were some ideas. I was not especially optimistic. I considered my position maybe very slightly better, maybe even not, but black played bishop f5 and offered me a draw, which surprised me, but I realized it was quite an unpleasant move for white. I saw it, but somehow did not believe it could be good, but it was. Actually, I should say that Eduardo was probably a bit ill during the game because he had a cold, perhaps. I don't know. Basically, many people had a cold here, and I even started with a cold the tournament, so I apologize if someone caught it from me. I don't know, but
you are healthy now, right?
Yes, I am healthy from about round 5 when I lost, but I was already healthy then. So bishop f5.
Idea is knight h7 at some stage, maybe or not.
Bishop g4 is a problem.
Bishop main idea, okay.
Yes, main idea is bishop g4 here, and it's not so easy to parry. I originally thought that okay, bishop d3 is a problem because of knight takes e5, but it took me even some time to realize that there was no mate on h7. I mean, I should see it, but recently I tend to miss such things more often than before. But okay, bishop d3 doesn't work anyway, but I somehow realized that it was a bit of a problem. I was deciding then between knight e1 and knight h2, but the problem with knight e1 is that my e5 pawn might become quite weak after c5 sometimes. And I would like to say one more thing, that originally I believed that c5 was the idea, but c5 here is not great because black no longer can no longer play b5, and I just protect my center pawns somehow, maybe with bishop f4, and I should be better because black does not have so many moves here. So after bishop f5 I played knight h2, and now c5 came under better conditions, yet I protected my pawn, and black at least doesn't have those b5 ideas. I also considered other moves like rook e1 or even f4, but f4 here is not great, and not even with knight on e1. I mean, here it exposes my king, and with rook e1 basically there were some traps, but I was not even sure who would get trapped here, because this looked great until I found bishop f6, and maybe it still works somehow, but I mean, I was not even willing to calculate this, didn't like it, and black also has other moves, so I created some little traps. Sorry, I'm healthy but still coughing it.
No worries,
fine.
So, first little trap was that if black would play this, I can just take, and if black had enough time for knight e6, he would be probably more or less fine.
e6
But
means bishop f7. You're
bishop
better.
takes f7, and I'm a healthy pawn up because there's e6 winning the queen. So it was the first little trap. Actually, pardon. Bishop g5 was another little trap. I was sitting at the board at this point because I walk a lot when I don't have so much to calculate because the opponent has plenty of options, or it's still the opening, or I want to preserve more energy for a subsequent play. But here black was down on time, so I understood that it made sense to sit at the board, and I had foreseen this trap with bishop g5. Black can play something else, but probably white is just very slightly better, but I have more space, and it's not so easy to come up with active ideas for black. I don't know, maybe I would...
Knight g4 and sacrifice
Yes,
at some stage?
it was my idea to play this sooner or later. I was just wondering whether d4 is protected well enough, whether there are not some ideas like, I don't know, knight b6 or whatever. That one doesn't work, but okay. So bishop g5 looks attractive but doesn't work. Another minor trap is knight h7 g4. So bishop g5 I took, and now I played it very quickly because I had calculated this line in advance, and I believed that it was good for white, and I also set another trap.
And he was really long time at this moment.
So the trap is that if black takes on e5, which looks great, there's queen takes e5 and bishop takes e6.
Ah, bishop e6.
And I have this intermediate check, and for example after rook e4 I have rook c8, and it's
checkmate.
Finished. So knight c5, I actually expected rook c5 and was not so sure if it's like so good for white or not. I calculated something like this. At least I saw that I was not going to lose the g4 pawn. I saw some reasonable looking move here, but now I don't remember which move, but at least I'm not losing anything, and rook d2 can be a move, and then knight b3 for example, if there is nothing better. So this is probably what I would have played with black. So knight c5 happened. Now I almost miscalculated. I thought I would catch the knight here, but then I realized that again black can recapture with the knight, because with the king it's impossible for more than one reason, but with the knight it's pretty much alright. So I decided to play a quiet move, improving my position, rook fd1. The g5 pawn is still under attack, and while I spent time here I concluded that after bishop e4, if black recaptures the pawn on e5, he will probably lose a piece. And even if not, that it's so hard to find a reasonable move here that he would not find any with less than 1 minute left. Actually there is no move anymore because I'm threatening f4, sometimes maybe even knight f3, who knows, and after f5 I can even take it like this, threatening knight e7 check, and black cannot recapture on f5 in any way. After knight d3 I can take like this. So basically it's lost already. I mean here instead of bishop e4 black has other moves, but it's bad anyway. For example here I have this bishop d3, and I mean I'm wondering if f5 is completely bad, but it's no good. I mean with the pawn on b4 it was even better for white in some lines, because there was queen a2 check after f5, g takes f5, e takes f5, bishop, no, but it was a different position, different line. Okay, so sorry. Yes, black could try something like bishop d3 maybe, but it's bad anyway. I did not really consider it much, but I think I saw the move but did not trust it, and I mean white can simply take and play bishop b1 if nothing else, and probably there is something else. So
he blundered. Okay, he played f6 and f4.
Yes,
and
here I spent 2 minutes because I knew that the opponent had blundered and there was no more reason to play quickly, and also in round 7 I was playing against Mile Boyer, and I mean after the after the opening I was worse, then I was close to winning, and I thought I had two ways to a victory. I spent like some 16 minutes on choosing one of them, and I was continuing quickly, then being sure that I'm going to mate him in several moves, and I missed one hidden move, and suddenly I could see no mate, no advantage, nothing. So here I decided to spend some time to decide whether I should play f4 indeed, which was my original intention, or whether I can also take on e6 at some line and like this, but f4 is just winning.
David, thanks for this exceptional analysis. I think if we could publish this in some magazine or something, it will take like 5-6 pages. I just want to add a few things regarding the game versus my mouse went idle. Regarding Paparazzi. So since you are a player who likes to play, okay, sort of faster maybe than others, you are not so often in time trouble. How was to play against the player who is just making the moves instantly? It was this opposite card endgame, but you managed to convert it. Yeah. Was that unpleasant a bit because you're always under some
yes,
time pressure?
It was difficult, but I mean it was already easier because it was the second time and my position was basically risk-free. So basically I went for the game against Giga Kuparadze and I expected it to finish in a draw, but basically wanted to play and see what happens. And actually I'm not playing so quickly nowadays, and I have also slowed down during the pandemic a lot because I had to break like 8.5 months because there were no over-the-board tournaments in the Czech Republic, and there were online events. I played some, but somehow it's completely different to play online blitz and play over-the-board classical game. So my time management got...
Yeah, just want to add here, yes, that you had like 70 minutes, he was 1 hour and 33. You needed to sit all the time, not chance to go to the toilet or something.
I went earlier, actually. I would feel a little bit more comfortable if I went one more time, but I was ready to stay there sitting for 2 more hours if needed. So it was fine.
And you converted in the end, and just want to...
Yes.
To add the game regarding, you want to add something regarding that game?
Yes, actually I already played against Giga Kuparadze 2 years ago, also with black, and it was in round 6, and at some point he had like I think 1 hour 50 minutes left. I had just 1 minute or half minute like this, and I was also winning at some point because he plays well, he's very fast, but sometimes makes inaccurate moves when playing so quickly, and he made a few inaccuracies and his position became lost at some point, but I needed to find some accurate sequence then, and I failed because I was already down on time. And here I mean my conversion was not super smooth, but at least it was a position where I could not lose. I could only lose on time or blundering some mate in one on h3, h2 with my king on h3 and pawn on g4, for example. And I could just keep trying to play on, so I kept trying some ideas. Basically, I can also play rapid chess well. I mean, it's not pleasant to be in time trouble for so long, but it's tolerable. Actually, recently in Czech Extra League I had a terrible game. I mean, it was so tiring because I spent like 87 moves or maybe even 88 moves in time trouble from 120 moves.
Just to mention that Giga has now a big group of fans because everyone likes how he plays super fast. So everyone is saying Giga is now 1 hour and 30 minutes ahead on clock. So it's interesting, but as we know that sometimes it's not easy to play accurately. And I want to ask one more question regarding there was your game versus I think it was versus Bernatsky. How, David, you come up in that kind of positions? For example, this. I was so shocked.
It was a crazy game and I missed many things, and I was actually lucky not to have lost it. Maybe at some point even black was a bit lucky. I'm sorry for this. I'm already healthy but still have these problems with coughing sometimes, and when I'm trying to overcome it I start
take it easy. Everything is good. Everything is good.
Okay. tears appear in my right eye when I am trying to suppress it. So I wanted to play something sharp. Although he is a good tactical player.
He's underrated, I think.
Of course, he's very much
player.
underrated. He was like 2,600 and above 2,600 a year ago, but he played a lot and played against many young Asian players who are underrated. So now they're a bit less underrated, and I am a bit less overrated. I did not expect this particular sub-variation with bishop g4, but I was ready for something similar, so king h1, knight d8, and I was at some point quite optimistic. It looked great.
Stefan is bringing you a coffee if you want. Is
you
it
can
a coffee?
take coffee,
No,
we
fine.
have
No,
time,
it's
you
fine.
don't
I
have to
still
hurry.
If you want some water, thanks Stefana for that.
I actually saw some ideas like if black plays f6 here, I can sacrifice probably, and I don't know if it works because there's some tricks with bishop e8. Queen f3 is winning here. So this was my idea, and maybe it works. It should work somehow. Queen g6, but it looked very promising here. I was ready to sacrifice sacrifice a piece if needed, and now either e takes or queen takes. Both looked promising, so I would spend some time deciding, and somehow I misplayed it now. First I missed bishop e6, and Vitaly was right that after something like a4 white is still slightly better here, but I played knight d2 missing bishop g4.
Yeah, he's very tricky,
Yes.
tactical.
Yes, it's no tragedy. I could have gone back, but somehow it looked dubious to go back, lose the tempo, and I was afraid that black could exploit it somehow. So I played queen e1 and quickly got into a bad position here.
Yeah, this looks really scary, huh?
Yes, I miscalculated somewhere, missed this rook d3 or rather rook e3 in some line. So basically I considered queen f1, but it was probably still the best option, and rook f3 now, but my original intention did not work because of this, when black is just an exchange up. So rook f3 came. I understood it was not good, but I thought I would probably lose, end up on +1 without realistic chances to qualify, so I was not super happy, but I decided to defend how I could. Okay, king h2 is maybe a move which you would expect from a player with a classical education, but I could not see any refutation of king takes h3, so I took the pawn. Actually it's pretty bad for white. There is some queen g5 somewhere, and this queen g5 here is not so convincing. It was better to start with it.
I think he was already playing this knight h5 or something at this point somewhere, knight h5, that he will go with that trick.
Yes, I saw that trick in some lines and missed it in others. So now I thought I was losing, but I found a nice trap. Actually computer here gives rook f1, rook e1, which is incredible. I find it extremely hard to believe that this holds. Probably it does. Okay, I played rook e1, tried to look a bit sad, which was not too difficult in this position, and there was a trap that if black goes for this, which seems to be winning, there is this Prokeš trick named after Czech study composer, rook e8, and I take on f4. I mean, Mr. Prokeš had this with endgames with a rook against 2 pawns, like f2 g2 with king on f2 e2 with king on g2 and rook d8, rook d1 d8 check, for example, but here it also works nicely. Actually, black is much better after queen h6 here, but don't ask me why.
We won't.
So e3, and now I considered bishop f7 or even bishop e6, but I somehow wanted to fortify f3, so I played bishop d1, threatening queen h2.
How tough was David to play with this knight on a5? Because it's really out of the game and you want to do something.
I think the knight on a5 is not the biggest problem. The g3 square, the dark squares are a big problem, the big problem. So I could bring the knight back. Here I was already not so disappointed about my position. I'm threatening queen h2, so bishop b8, knight b3. I decided to give back the pawn. now I looked happy. I considered bishop b3, which maybe was more accurate. I played bishop c2, hoping to install my bishop on e4, and now rook g8 came, and I realized that even after queen h2 there would be knight h5. I thought I would play bishop e4, but then I realized that the knight could also go to g3 sometimes, and that my queen would not be very active. So I spent a lot of time. I mean, one important advantage of white pieces is that white is the first one who can stop after time trouble and start thinking, because there are some positions where both sides made plenty of mistakes in time trouble, and white's advantage is not only that there is the first move, but also that white is the first one who can stop and think after the time trouble passes. So I
choose the direction.
Yes, queen g1 is the only move, and I would not have decided for it if I had to make a move in 5 minutes, probably. I mean, it was one of the moves which I considered, but not the only one by far. But the others failed terribly. So queen g1, queen f4, rook takes e3, and now it suddenly looked very good. I believed to have a serious advantage, which is true, but I did not calculate everything as I should. So bishop d3 is the best move here, and I disliked knight e8 because I really did not want to see the knight on g5 nor on f4. So I saw that I could play f6 here. I even saw the following variation if black plays something like this, hoping to take on f4 with the knight. There's rook e4, and this endgame is winning because the passed pawns are too strong for black's knight. So this I saw, but I was not so sure about knight d6, and perhaps I also saw g5, king b8, and did not know what to think about the position. Computer says it's more or less winning for white here. Queen e5 is coming. It's similar to the game where black's knight was probably still on e8, my pawn was on g4, but I mean, it's not so easy to say whether it's better to have a pawn on g6. It's more advanced, but also the king is weaker, and even white's pawns could be weaker in some lines, but here it somehow works for white, and in the game it did not. So I played f6 to give back the pawn and activate my queen now. And all looked great because I'm attacking black's king. I mean, not now, but black's knight should stay on g7 for the time being because of bishop f5. And I'm threatening queen e5 with the queen exchange for in some lines, or I at least centralize my queen, and the endgames are winning for me. Computer says that queen a1 works here somehow, but it looked highly dubious. I don't know why I did not consider it seriously. Maybe something like rook e7, queen f1, queen g2 looked convincing to me, but somehow it's not. I don't know. Rook d5 was the move which I considered. Bishop b3, and I considered bishop rook e5, which is obviously not great. I even considered knight e6 here. I can take then, and probably take immediately on d5, and I have an advantageous queen endgame. I thought it was close to winning. Maybe it's just better, but clearly advantageous.
Why are you taking immediately? Why not, I don't know, queen f2 or
queen
something?
f4 is also an option. I'm just afraid of some mate, of some tactics, but okay, queen f4, queen d6 could be an option if black survives the endgame. I don't know if he comes with king
better
in time. I mean, bishop takes d5 rules out some of black's options at least, but maybe, okay, I don't know, queen e1 can, okay.
No, but takes on d5, yeah.
Yes,
take.
d4, g6, yes, probably. Okay, so I saw this knight h5 idea coming in various lines, but not here. It was a shocker, and at some point I thought that I was losing again. And then I spent I saw that I could give up a queen and play with king, rook, bishop against queen, and perhaps black would even have an extra pawn. And it did not look great at all. And then I realized that there was some line where I give away an exchange and I'm winning. So I thought I was losing. Then I thought I was winning. And actually it's a draw, so it was quite funny. So I took. it takes some time to realize that this is possible, because after king takes h4, which was the reserve option, the second best, but still completely losing, this is just lost. I'm losing the b4 pawn. So king g2, and black cannot take. He cannot take here because my h pawn is too quick and his king is too far. I will bring my rook to h4 if needed, or I can also start with h6, h7.
Mm-hmm.
And if black takes the rook, takes the exchange, my pawn is queening. If black takes the exchange in another way, my pawn is still queening. Okay, for example, king g2, h6, I don't know, h3, and rook e1, for example, h7. So this is winning. So I believed that I was winning, but Vitaly found this strong idea, queen d3, which I saw, and queen b1, which I missed, and I cannot withdraw.
Yeah, you're losing the
because
queen.
of this.
What a game!
Yes, it was an incredible game, and I was probably more lucky than the opponent because I probably missed more things, but it was quite an interesting game.
Yeah, you have some super interesting draw with the black pieces, what to do. Tomorrow I guess you will be white, David, so yeah, good luck in your two last...
I wanted to ask you something, not to ask you, but
Yes.
you played in Petrots and you had same number, like 4.5 out of 9, and then I think in 10th round you lost a game against Darda as white. So now you have 4.5 out of 9, and I wish you luck tomorrow, and yeah, I hope...
More
Okay,
points?
6.5
Six
out
and a
of
half,
9.
you said,
What
sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
saying,
4.5, you said.
sorry,
Thank
6.5, yeah.
Thank
But
you.
it was interesting, yeah. So we wish you luck, and yeah, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you very much, but basically now I'm in a much better situation because
Yes.
back then I started poorly. I mean, I did not even play it so badly, but my opponents also played well, and even when I got on +4 after round 9, I was not in top 20 back then. I was like 22nd. So I understood that even after winning 3 games in a row, I still needed to score 1.5 out of 2. And so I played for a win at any cost in the penultimate round, and it backfired. Daniel Darda played a great tournament and won the game against me deservedly. And I did not qualify, but now the situation is different, so I mean there is not so much pressure, because if I score 1 point out of 2 I will probably qualify. It doesn't mean that I would like to make a quick draw with white, no, but I mean now I am in a much better situation, and I can play according to the position. And
Very good,
Yeah.
David. Yeah, good luck with your last 2 rounds.
Thank you.
If it will be super positive in the end, of course, you are always more than welcome to join us once again. So, thank you for coming.
you are